Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Hofford. I have the opportunity to serve as this organization's CEO. It is a pleasure to have all of you here today, and by the way, on a holiday. So great job, way to show up. A full room is a healthy room. We'd like to start off today by recognizing we have the triumphant return of, in a way, one of Salem's own, and our keynote speaker today will be Mr. Sean O'Halloran, who is a graduate of Willamette University. Please help me welcome Sean today. These events are made possible, of course, by the generous donations of our businesses who believe in the mission of the Salem Chamber, and no exception to that rule is the fine folks at Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt, and they are represented today by Mr. Mark Hoyt. On my far left is Lynn Zielinski-Mills, who is the marketing manager for Safe, and I keep wanting to say Safe Corporation, but I know the official change has been made with Safe, and Lynn will talk to us briefly about our Safe Agribusiness Banquet, which is coming up in January. To my immediate right, our past president, Bruce Anderson, with the Oregon House Republicans Office, and next to him, the skilled Kathy Gordon with Aldrich CPAs and advisors. I would like our chamber board members to please stand and be recognized by the crowd. Caleb is here. I see Jeff here. We have Ryan Collier, Dave Dunn, Alan Rasmussen. Let's see. I see TJ Sullivan, Eric Templeton. We have this beautiful lady who is always supporting us. Anybody else in the crowd? Wendy Valise. Thank you, Wendy. The reason I have a bit of kidding about Laura Dorn is we have sent Laura a number of things through the mail, and they are going to a Portland address. And so Laura is always about 20 days behind due to us, not her, but we've made that correction, Laura. Great to have you here. How about our past presidents group? I know a number of you are here. Chuck, Jim, Richard, Barb, Brent DeHart, TJ, and Alan. Who is back there? Teresa, I see you. It's a little hard with the light. Thank you for your service to this organization. And lastly, we'd like to ask our students from the MAPS Credit Union branch at McKay High School to please stand. Thank you for being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you to rise, and we will have the presentation of our colors through our national anthem. Please stay standing afterwards, as we will have an invocation by Rian Rasubala in Workforce Development at the Salem Chamber. I'd like to introduce you to our wonderful singers with the Willamette Master Chorus.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night
All right, please join me in this prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the ways in which you have richly blessed us in Salem and the Willamette Valley with the incredible bounty of our land, the beauty of our region, and the community that we all get to be a part of here in Salem-Keizer. I thank you for the amazing leaders in this room and beyond who help shepherd this community in a very similar way that you shepherd your people. Would you give the people in this room, whether a business owner, community leader, employee, or student, would you impart to us your wisdom to lead, to do the right thing, even when it's hard, and to empower those around us to be the best that they can be? God, we confess that our strength alone is not enough. We acknowledge our need for you and ask that you would guide us for the days ahead. We ask that you would bless the food that is before us, the hands who prepared it, and our time together. In your name, Jesus, amen.
Thank you, Rian, and thank you so much, Master Chorus. We are extremely excited to have live music be incorporated into each and every one of our forum luncheons. You're going to get to know these singers quite well. They have committed, starting in November, to be with us for the 6 remaining programs, and this chamber is very, very excited to promote them. They have a concert coming up on November 8th and 9th, and we'd like you to be aware of that. You can go to their website, and any support for the local programs like this is absolutely fantastic. Ron, to you and your group, our hats off, sir. At this time, I'd like to invite Lynn Zielinski-Mills to give a brief word about our upcoming Safe Agribusiness Banquet.
Hello. As Tom mentioned, I'm Lynn. I'm with SAFE. I'm the chair of the Safe Agribusiness Banquet Committee at the Salem Chamber. And we just wanted to give you a little shout out so that you could save the date for the upcoming banquet. It will be Friday, January 17th. It will be here at the Salem Convention Center. Our featured speaker will be Jim Bruneau with Willamette Valley Vineyards. And we'll be going back to our roots with boots and blue jeans. Tickets will go on sale November 1st, so that's coming up in just a couple of weeks. So please join us in celebrating the ag industry. Thanks.
Lynn and her group do an absolutely fantastic job bringing together a very large banquet and really one of the premier gathering spots for our Salem Chamber membership, but really more importantly to bring in all those producers, wineries, anything that can be grown or harvested, brought together for one special evening. So Lynn, thank you so much for the work that your group is doing. 100% volunteer driven and really making an impact. At this point, I would like to make a presentation of our Spirit of Salem Award. And this month's award is going to be recognizing a very special individual who unfortunately was not able to join us today, but is enjoying a family vacation, very deserved. The Spirit of Salem Award is our monthly opportunity to recognize the influencers who put Salem first and inspire individuals to become champions for our city. The recipients of this unique award are quiet drivers of a healthy, engaging business community. This month's award recipient is Jose Gonzalez, owner of Tu Casa Real Estate. Jose was a founding member of the Chamber Latino Network, uniting business owners and employees across our city. 12 years ago, the Latino Network transformed into the Latino Business Alliance. This group, under Jose's leadership, has expanded its bandwidth and influence within the region. The Latino Business Alliance will host their 10th annual Expo Negocio on November 14th at the Chemeketa Center for Business and Industry. If you'd like to participate in that event, the LBA would request that you log on to their Facebook page and click Interested for more information. As I mentioned, Jose was unable to join us today, but we were able to capture a brief video with Jose receiving his award, and I will turn it over to the skilled hands of Brian Hart at CCTV for that message.
I'd like to thank Tom, the chamber board, and everybody in attendance there. Sorry I couldn't be there. And I'm actually, at this moment, at the Star Wars land at Disneyland with my family. So that's the only excuse I could have come up with to miss something like this. More than anything, I appreciate the opportunity that the Salem Chamber has given me. The Spirit of Salem Award means a lot because this is my home. It'll always be my home. I've grown a business here. Now we're on our second business. Our kids gone to school here. It's been our home for over 25 years. And more than anything, it wasn't easy getting started, but what is? Anything that's worth it is worth fighting for. And in Salem, if you do want to take a chance and take a risk, it'll pay off because the people here will embrace you. The community, the Latino community supported me, the Salem Chamber. I mean, it's really been just all around support. And if you want it, you can get it too. So thanks again.
We will proudly deliver this to Jose for his office and really congratulate him for the pioneering work he has done to bring people together. And that is exactly what this Salem Chamber stands for. And to have Jose involved in a leadership position is a great service, not just to the Chamber, but to our community. Now I'd like to introduce you to the president of our organization, Kathy Gordon. As you're aware, we had a bit of a unique situation occur. In fact, it's the first time in our organization's history, at least dating back to 1940, that we could track where a president, unfortunately, was unable to fulfill their term due to a change in careers. So this fine gentleman next to me, I'm going to allow Kathy to certainly talk more about, but Bruce Anderson has been a rock for this organization for over 11 years, and his service to the Salem and Kaiser communities is quite profound. As a nimble and agile organization will do, when a change occurs, other people step up to fill the void. And Bruce, we are going to tremendously miss your service to this board, but we are very happy for your career move and hopefully bringing this state closer together in a time that more than ever we need some political change. At this, allow me to introduce you to your Chamber President, Kathy Gordon.
Well, I'm thrilled today to be able to honor Bruce Anderson. Bruce has been a bright light in our Salem-Kaiser community. He just recently served as the Northwest Naturals Community and Governmental Affairs Director for our region. Previously, he served as a lobbyist for the Home Builders Association, a lobbyist for the Northwest Food Processors Association, and served in the House Majority Office under Lynn Snodgrass. Now Bruce transitions to the Chief of Staff role with the Oregon House Republican Office under Representative Christine Drazen. Boy, are they lucky to have him. Bruce has served on our chamber board for 11 years and 6 years on our executive committee. And Bruce brought many talents to the table. But 3 words really stick out when I wish to describe Bruce at his best: committed, balanced, and kind. I will miss Bruce's jovial storytelling and his vast alliances with all segments of our Salem-Kaiser community. Bruce's time at the helm of Salem Chamber was a bit shorter than we anticipated, but he did so much for so many years to chart us on the right course. Bruce, this organization salutes you for your service and presents you with 2 gifts of appreciation. One is a bit tastier than the other, and for those of you that do not know this, Bruce is a huge fan of cheeses from around the world. Bruce, we know that you will be involved in the Salem Chamber, even though you're over at the Capitol, and we thank you sincerely for your profound impact to our organization. Would you like to say a few words, Bruce? Sure.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's kind of interesting when you're kind of on the path and road to being the president of the Chamber of Commerce. It only took me about 11 years to get there. And then a little course correction here, but I'm excited by the opportunity that is before us with the election of Representative Christine Drazen, a Republican from Canby, as the new leader. We've got an immense brand new blood, new ideas, not just from Representative Drazen, but with a lot of our other freshman Republicans. Some that I've absolutely delighted, as Teddy Roosevelt used to say, to see and encouraged so much in terms of how we're going to move forward in that regard for this state. In about the 30 years I've been working with the Capitol, this is one of the most exciting moments that I can think of. As a matter of fact, when Commissioner Kevin Cameron found out about this, he said, "I'm not sure if I should give you congratulations or condolences." And I think Dick Withnell gave me that word too. So, but anyway, I'm just excited beyond words to do this. But one of the things that I will say, my journey started with respect to this Chamber of Commerce. I'm going like a lot of folks, and that was with Mike McLaren. Mike sitting me down and saying, "What are you interested in? What do you want to do? You ought to do this and you ought to do that." And he was just such an encouragement just of himself, and just as someone who sticks with me to this day. We've got an incredible group of board leaders, and that's going to be one thing I'm really going to miss, not coming month in and month out with all of y'all. So I will definitely miss you immensely. Kathy Gordon, as coming behind me as president-elect, was so exciting to me. She's going to be an awesome president when that moment comes, and I'm really looking forward to that. And one of the biggest things and exciting things for me personally was when Tom Hoffert stepped forward to become our CEO. That was an incredible moment, and it was so awesome to see him leave an incredibly successful career to come back to a place that he is absolutely passionate about in serving. So I just really appreciate that so much. But and I'll close. I know I'm going to get the hook here anyway, but it's exciting to be able to have the opportunity to make a difference. When I was downtown Salem Rotary president, our theme that year was making a difference, and I think we're going to be making a difference here this next year. We're going to have some exciting things coming up here, but from my perspective, it's bringing some more civility and more compromise back to where we, in my opinion, we need to belong in our state capitol. That's what I hope that I'm going to be able to bring to that. But I just want to really thank you all for your support for this Chamber of Commerce. This is an immensely incredibly strong organization, but it's really due to the fine leaders and the fine supporters like yourselves as members. So thank you so much for your support, and we'll see you down the road.
Bruce is always very humble about the work he did, but as TJ would confess, and I'm sure Kurt prior, Bruce is just a rock on the board. He understands process, and he understands how to pull more people in rather than pushing people away. And Bruce, I think in a time where the climate needs you more than ever, that's something that this board feels very proud that you're going to take on. So thank you for that service back to our community. Now it's the opportunity that I have to introduce our sponsor for today. And Mark Hoyt is very simple, and he says, "I don't want to say a lot. This community is wonderful to our company, but I would say that Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt have their fingerprints all over Salem. And for years and years, that company has been committed to offering services on the professional nature back to those who need it most. And whether it's their participation in Leadership Salem or a vast number of things, you do see their people out and participating. And Mark, we thank you for that, because that is an investment back. Our sponsor today is going to be interesting to hear from, because it's a busy time, and this city has more going on than ever before. And with that type of energy and vitality, our professional services, our attorneys and CPAs are doing well. And we as a community need to keep that support localized. There are a lot of options outside of the city, and I think we need to look right in this city for those that can help us be successful each day. Ladies and gentlemen, I introduce the partner, one of the partners of Sherman, Johnny and Hoyt, Mr. Mark Hoyt. Thank you, sir.
Tom is, first of all, too kind. But before I go on, I want to stop for a minute and say a thank you that hasn't been said, that is too often overlooked, and that is a thank you to Tom and his staff for putting together this lunch. Rooms have to be booked, meals structured, sponsors obtained, speakers managed, no easy task, and all of the things that go into putting on a lunch. So let's say thank you to Tom and his staff at the Chamber for putting this together. At Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt, we believe the practice of law is about solving problems, managing risks, and expanding opportunities. And we can't do that if we're not a participant in and a member of the community in which our clients work, because by doing that, we can understand their environment. And that's why we're a sponsor here. And as Tom said, I'm not going to spend much except to note that we're very proud to be a part of this community. We're very proud of the businesses in this community, and we are proud to see this community thrive and grow. It is also one of the reasons that we are particularly proud to be the sponsor of today's event, because our speaker reflects that throughout not only Salem, but Oregon and the globe. Sean O'Halloran we are pleased to welcome him back to Salem. He serves as the government and public affairs lead at Nike, overseeing Nike flight operations. Sean is a commissioner at the Port of Portland, board chair for the World Federation of Sporting Goods Industry, a trustee of the board, trustee and board secretary at his alma mater, Willamette University, a board member at the Oregon Public Broadcasting. His service to our state includes work as a former commissioner on the Oregon Transportation Commission, a White House Legislative Affairs deputy, the Assistant Secretary of Transportation, and United States Senate staff. Sean is a prior corporate executive at Honeywell and Union Pacific. In his leisure, Sean enjoys multiple sports and is a sports car enthusiast. So as you can see, our speaker brings to you not only a broad perspective from his participation in multiple aspects of our community, but a career of achievement and commitment to community. So please welcome to the podium, Mr. Sean O'Halloran.
Thank you very much, and it's an honor for me to be here, and I just want to thank Lynn, thank Mark, Bruce, Kathy, Tom, but in particular, Mr. Jerry Frank, who is on a cruise as we speak and has apologized multiple times to me for not being here. But for any of you, and I assume that's most of you or all of you who know him, knows that he doesn't really ask. He kind of asks, but he kind of tells, too, that I was going to be a speaker here, and that he had graciously volunteered me, and he could subtly say, out of just mild frustration, that I wasn't quick enough getting back to Tom because I didn't know what part of the world I was going to be in. But I know that it is truly an honor to be here, and I think that when I was a student at Willamette, and it's great to see the Willamette University community here and present, that me speaking in front of you was something that felt very distant. And I think for each of us in the roles that we play, we ask, how did I end up here? How did we end up in these roles? And I think it is a fundamental exercise in human relations, as Mark Hatfield, one of my mentors and bosses, said. But it was through Jerry Frank that connection came to be. And I think that if we look at the roles that we play and the work we do, relationships is a huge component of it. Our relationships with our work colleagues, our customers, and a fundamental relationship between business and government, that whether you like it or not, it is there, and how you embrace it is really the choice. And the investments we make in those relationships. But I'm grateful to Jerry Frank for the investment he made in me and for having confidence in me to be an intern for Marco Hatfield, who then the senior senator from Oregon, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee, and who was kind of bigger than life as a student at Willamette. And now serving on their board of trustees is also an honor, but there are still moments where I say, how did I end up here? If they really knew what kind of a student I was and what a hellion I was as a student, they would never have me on this board. But I think it also is a testament to how we evolve. And I think everything, the world we're in is evolving rapidly. And just in listening to Oregon Public Broadcasting or Bloomberg or whatever, however we happen to get our news, it is a real challenge to keep up on what is going on, not just here in Salem, but around the world. And probably never before has it felt so much in turmoil. And it's really important, and in the work that I do in dealing with multiple governments, multiple geographies, to separate it into the variables that we control and can influence, and those that we can't, and to decide how do we take our business, how do we take our entity, to guide through those things that we can't predict or control, weather and war and big things that have big impacts on us, and the anxiety that those things can produce. But and in a world that's full of populism and fueled by immigration, where people are thrown out of their houses or their countries, and if you see photos of Syria, you kind of, it's unimaginable to us here to say, how could we be thrown out of our house and be on the road with your family or just your basic things. And it's hard in our quality of life to imagine, but also important as we listen to that incredible national anthem about the fact that the United States, even with all the turmoil that we have, our political vitriol and really just discourse, that the United States remains an ideal. It remains a place that people from around the world want to go to and want to be part of. And that in one generation, through our educational system, can go from having nothing, working hard at entry-level jobs, educating, and have their kids establish an entirely different quality of life than they had in one generation. And I do remember, I'm going off on a little bit of tangent from my notes, but I'll get back to them. And you guys can think of this, that from my education at Willamette, and through the investment that people had, I ended up through a series of events to be in the White House, and it was in the administration of George W. Bush, and I got there through a kind of crazy course that after working for Mark Hatfield as an intern, legislative assistant, and then going on to the Appropriations Committee, where I had the honor to represent him to do a lot of big things, like set up the light rail system in Portland and some big investments that are really amazing to kind of see in the flesh. But his lens and his mentorship and investing in Oregon Health Science University, and he knew he could get the brick and mortar, but he would spend his weekends flying to places to meet with medical teams, because he said the brick and mortar is nothing if we can't recruit the talent. And it's the people that really mattered. And it said, what would it take to get you to move to Oregon? If we get an electron microscope, will you come? So it was always looking at the people as one of those variables that he could influence and control. And how we act in it, The United States is 5% of the world's population. We're currently about 21% of the world's economy. And as we look at the trading relationships, and as we look, and no one understood this more than Mark Hatfield, who spent a good chunk of his career in this city, and that it was really the relationships that will drive our economy. And why wouldn't our 5% of the world's population want to grow successfully on the economic prosperity of the rest of the world? That we cannot do this alone on the backs of the United States. The company I work for, Nike, is a big company. And I know we can get challenged on our patriotism, but our founder, Phil Knight, is very, very committed to the United States and knows from pure entrepreneurship what it takes to take a company from 3 people and an idea based on his dissertation at Stanford that we could create and innovate here, manufacture in Asia, and be able to compete with Europe. And it's fundamentally still our model. And it has grown us from 3 people to 37,000 people in the United States and 77,000 worldwide. So we are a big company, but we didn't start that way. My stepfather, a guy named Bill Healy, was a very entrepreneurial guy, and he developed Mount Bachelor here, and I had the honor to grow up working in very high-level jobs. Started with picking up garbage, bussing tables, shoveling snow, parking cars, spraying Lysol into returned rental booths. And I remember seeing him out there with a pick one day, picking ice off the stairs going up to the lodge. And I remember asking him as a 12-year-old kid, "Bill, what are you doing? You're the president." And he looked at me in just total shock and said, "Yeah, I'm the president, and everyone here is doing the job they're being paid to do, and this job needs to be done. So why don't you get a pick and help me?" So and away we went to pick the snow off. But I think entrepreneurship is something that we don't always associate with government. And I think there's always a moment in our careers and in our lives where we say, we realize, tag, you're it. It's no longer our parents that are doing the roles, that we have that moment to lead, and where we have to step up and do big things and do big jobs. And following work with Mark Hatfield, I went to Union Pacific. Their largest customer was General Motors, and their Washington office was headed by former Secretary of Transportation Andy Card. I had built a good relationship with him. When George W. Bush was finally determined to be the president, he called me up and said, "Hey, what do you think about going over to my old haunt to transportation? You'd have to go through Senate confirmation." And I'm like, "Well, I'm okay with that, but I hope all my friends at Willamette keep their mouth shut." So, and they did. Said only good things. They didn't maybe tell all the story, but made it through confirmation. And then we were going on to, look at building airports and invest in infrastructure. And then terrorists flew airplanes into buildings. And I remember when I got into this job, and I think management is a little bit like parenting, that there were things your parents did that you didn't like and you don't want to do with your own kids. And there were probably, you had good bosses and bad bosses along the way in your career and things that you want to do and not do. And I was able to hire a staff of people, and people said, "Well, you've got to get transportation experts." And I said, "Well, really?" And the White House was saying, "Hey, we have these people who worked on the campaign. Would you consider hiring any of them?" And I was like, "Sure." And what I wanted was young, impressive, energetic, aggressive, but I also wanted judgment and instinct. not just experience and education. And I hired for those things. And then when, after 9/11, the attacks, I was grateful that I had energy and talent. And when people would come to me and say, hey, we have this problem, I would go, well, what do you recommend we do about it? And they'd be like, you want my recommendation? I'm like, yes, I want your recommendation. And they would give it to me and say, okay. And I'm saying, okay, do it. So it was a moment where I needed their judgment and instinct, and I needed them to execute on it. But it was also a moment of tag, you're it, you're the adult in the room. And governments don't do big things very often, like set up new departments or agencies. And we were tasked with one. I know we go through TSA now, and everyone thinks it's a huge pain in the rear. But at the moment, it was, you better get the airplanes flying again. You better restore faith in commerce. Our economy is cratering because people aren't flying. They're afraid to fly. And so creating new departments and agencies is not something that happens very often, and I think we can be thankful for that. But this was big and fast, and it was creating a new agency that had a direct relationship with commerce because it was restoring confidence. And it took us a year to do it. We had big debates on whether screeners should be public or private. And we obviously lost on that notion, and they're all public. But people are flying, and we did give it back. But it was a moment of having to step up, having to make decisions, and to be innovative. And one evening when we were talking around with Secretary Norm Mineta and discussing about how lines were going to be created in airports. And all the airports were concerned about it killing commerce in the airports. And no one's going to go shopping, no one's going to do these things. And serving now on the Port of Portland Commission that oversees 3 airports, most notably PDX, you realize it's a very, you're running a shopping mall, you're dealing with parking lots and rental agencies and really multifaceted business enterprise, but also government. But I could see why there was big concern. And I remember Norm Mineta saying, you know, who does the best with lines? And us having the conversation, kind of saying, well, Disneyland. And everybody kind of, you know, chuckled. And Norm Mineta was like, you know, I was just there. You know, they really do a good job with lines. And he left, and we thought he was going to go to the bathroom. And 10 minutes later, he comes back and says, hey, I just got off the phone with Mr. Eisner, who was then CEO of Disney. He goes, he's sending a team of 5 people back here to work with us for as long as it takes to develop the structure for the lines, security lines, in every single airport in the country at their expense. So there were moments of private sector just leaping in to say we have a problem and a particular capability on how to solve it, and just seeing that. So I think that innovation and opportunity to be entrepreneurial can come at any moment, and it probably comes to each and every one of you multiple times in the course of a day. And I think that I hear so much of the political conversation today about punishing success, and it kind of makes me cringe. I'm like, no. This is what creates that American ideal that still makes people from around the world want to come here. And I think if we spent as much time focusing on bringing the bottom up and creating that opportunity and bringing people from lower income into the middle class as we did trying to bring the top down, we'd be able to do a lot of good things. And I'm hoping to see the conversation head that way. But I think for what we do and the roles that we play, I'm grateful that I have always had mentors, many of them who started here in Salem, Oregon, or spent a large portion of their career here, that we're willing to invest in people at different stages in their career to guide and assist along the way without it being a benefit to themselves. And those investments are something that craft us in who we are. And for each stage of my career, I've had mentors, and I've tried to serve in that role to others. And no matter where you are, I think it's still important. And maybe the mentors aren't as direct, but they're people whose an attribute of their life inspires you for how you can act differently or treat people differently, run your business differently. And sometimes they might be a little silent and maybe not so direct. You can just look for inspiration and figure out where it gets you. And reaching out to younger people, not just to mentorship, but can you provide an internship? And internships are great things because you can't get a job without experience, and you can't get experience without a job, and that kind of breaks this dilemma. So I was grateful for the internship that Jerry Frank created for me in Mark Hatfield's office. And I think that each of us need to recognize the relationships that we have, the relationship between business and government, the relationship between us and our customers, our educational institutions, mentoring, being mentored, and I think in taking on issues that need to be addressed. Capitalism has a bad rap right now, and I think that we need to talk about the opportunity it creates, that governments can't do the things they need to do if they don't have the tax base from healthy and thriving businesses to invest in schools and roads and bridges. And it all gets down to relationships. Some of them have tension naturally, and some of them are relationships where we are offering some of our capability to help others. And I think really it's a matter of just being engaged. And you can do that 1,000 ways. But I think in coming back to the fundamental question about how did we get where we are, and for me it was, I think, one fundamental thing that I still value and appreciate, and that is attitude. Coming from Willamette University, I was in an environment where there were people from other institutions that maybe were better known or bigger, and I think that I was able to leapfrog because of what I learned here in Salem about fundamental self-awareness. Can you put yourself in someone else's position? Can you see from their point of view and their perspective? And even when you're dealing with a government, what is their objective in this? For China, if they want to reduce their long-term health care costs, getting kids active is part of that. Getting kids active is a great thing. It's good for Nike. It's good for lots of things. Keeping kids out of trouble, too. And so I think that when we look at this, attitude is really about how we approach our customers, our business, but it's also what allows us to distinguish ourselves from people who might feel entitled to certain things, that we approach life knowing that hard work and a positive attitude will allow us to continue to be successful, and to each and every one of you in this room to know that there's a moment where you're saying, how did I end up here in this business or doing this or leading this? And to reflect on those who helped you, mentored you, gave you an opportunity or had a vote of confidence in you, even when you might not have had it in yourself. And right now, I think looking at the world and people who are very different than ourselves, it's a moment to take that attitude and to reach out and to just connect and to embrace a different point of view, someone you don't agree with. I don't know if you guys caught it in the news, but it was nice to see Ellen DeGeneres' response to being in the same box with George W. Bush, and some of her customers squawking about it, and her response, I think, was notable about just about it's okay to share the same space with someone who thinks and acts very differently than you do. And so I encourage you all to do that. I want to thank you sincerely for welcoming me here. I would not have imagined being here while at Willamette. And I also want to thank you for what you've done for Salem and how it's transformed into really a wonderful community, a great place to be in downtown, the stores, the restaurants, what you have to offer, what you've invested in this community makes me very proud to have spent a number of years here and to still be connected to Salem, Oregon. So I'm proud to be a part of this community, and thank you for having me here today. Appreciate it. I don't know if we're doing any Q&A, but I can't really see. It's like, I feel like it's like God looking at me and build an ark, you know. Anyway, any questions?
Right here.
I love, excuse me, I love faith and politics. I appreciate your last comment. What would you personally advise us personally to help decrease the diversity and dysfunction in politics, and just help us see that what we have in common?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I ask it to myself every day, but I think it's a fundamental matter of being engaged, and if it's being engaged with one person, and I think be a part of it, and being a part of this Chamber of Commerce is part of that, and I think that when you're being tagged to be on a commission or a board or a run for an office, a school, you know, it's like, I don't have time, I don't want to do it, and it's like, you know, geez, do I have to do that? But it's like, I think being engaged and finding time to do things that you think you can't fit in your schedule, and prioritizing to be a part of it. And I think even a conversation at a dinner table about just accepting diversity, about being in the inclusion side of it. We all grew up differently. We grew up in different families and different environments, and it's like just listening sometimes makes a huge difference on the inclusion part, and that everybody has a different perspective. And I think that things that are blatantly obvious to you may not be to somebody else, and I think it's just being willing to have a conversation and to listen, but to be engaged in our community like you are, obviously, and to step forward when everyone else is stepping back and doing things that are hard and continuing to lead. But I think that the answer to that question is just perpetual, right? It doesn't have a finish line. It's just there's always something else. And so anyway, it's a good question, though.
Sean, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. Do you feel comfortable talking about Nike's relationship to the state of Oregon, its tether to the state of Oregon?
Absolutely.
We'd all like to feel as though that we will always be the home for the corporation.
Yeah, absolutely. One, I think it's like anyone wants in business, we wanted predictability. And I don't know if you guys can remember the old Reese's Peanut Butter Cup commercials where they would have two people kind of smacking into each other, and one person had a jar of peanut butter and one person had a chocolate, and they'd say, "You got chocolate in my peanut butter. You got peanut butter in my chocolate." And they're like, "Hey, it's pretty good. You know, we should, market it." So there's a component of that that keeps us tethered to Oregon. And even I think when Nike's board was saying, you guys need to diversify and go elsewhere, and we did a nationwide search, thinking about should we expand our U.S. Footprint elsewhere. And it came down to, hey, if we could get predictability on tax, we would invest here and expand here. And that was the special session that got a lot of controversy, but it wasn't a tax break. It was just saying, hey, you won't change the single sales factor for 30 years, and that will give us enough assurance to invest here. And I think since that moment, we've added 5,000 jobs here in Oregon. And I think Nike has, for better or worse, diversified Oregon, brought people in, recruited people that come from different parts of the planet and different parts of the world. But it's that bumping into colleagues and coming up with new innovative ideas. And I think Intel may be the largest private employer here, but and just amazing and incredible investments. But Nike continues to invest and grow here. And I know that we always look at, geez, those general administrative expenses and like new buildings going up. Yeah, it's, I think Nike and Phil Knight and Mark Parker, our leadership team, the women and men who guide us today, feel proud to be here. People move here from other parts of the country. They come to visit and they fall in love. Yes, it gives us challenges on infrastructure and everything else, but I think it's still a proud part of our heritage. We're proud to be here. We've assessed going other places and what that means, and come to the conclusion that this is the best place in the country to be, and we're proud to be here, and we're going to keep expanding here. So I hope that answers it. But so,
hey, anyway. Sean, I'm back here, in the way back. Teresa Haskins, Portland General Electric. But my question is, you've had a really long and varied career. Of all those positions and tasks of the past, where would you wish that you had spent just a little more time, that there was something that you had yet to get done before you moved on to the next?
That's a good question. I think that for me, it's a constant state of learning from people all around you at every level. I think that each role I grew, and I think that your perspective of the job you're in always makes you say, geez, if I had known this when I was in that last job, I could have done that last job a lot better. But so there's an element of that, but I think I grew tremendously in the U.S. Department of Transportation and then in the White House, because it was just every day was a challenge. After setting up TSA, I was one of the few people that could go to work in the White House and improve my quality of life. That doesn't typically happen. Most people are hair on fire the whole time. But it was, and every single day I knew was that no matter how long I was there, it was going to be a short period of time, and that it was an incredible honor. And how did I get from Salem, Oregon to being in the Oval Office? And the stories and the experiences there, and the stumbles that help make you stronger. But I think I've had rare and incredible experiences. Honeywell taught me about the world, and to be able to take your U.S. hat off and think like another country. And I think that I don't feel like I would go backwards on any of them, and I feel like the time I had taught me what I needed to know and learn. And probably I'm thankful to have a little more time in the job I am in, and hopefully they won't get rid of me before I'm ready to go. But I think I'm glad I'm just spending a little more time right where I am, and I'm grateful that I've had the experience and those people who had confidence in me along the way. But the interactions have been tremendous. So, yeah.
Sean, thanks for coming. How does Nike, or can you talk more about how Nike sees the engagement in tariffs internationally and U.S.'s role in that engagement? And do you think about it towards your business model, or is it thinking about it from the perspective of other countries? I mean, do you orient it through your U.S. lens, or because you're international, you have to almost imagine it in 3 dimensions?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Well, Nike, a tariff is a tax. Let me just, it is. It's a cost of admission to bring something in, and there are reasons why you might have elements of protectionism to prevent foreign competition. But and I think initially, so Nike since 1972 has operated under a veil of tariff laws that were put in place in 1930s, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act, and I think Representative Hawley was from Oregon. So we've had that headwind on our business forever because the model was never to make lots of tennis shoes here. And the tariff structure was put in place to protect U.S. cobblers against those cheap Italian imports. That model is a little antiquated. And I think now if it's used for political tools, it's not, there isn't, the structure was put in place when athletic footwear wasn't even thought of. And so the tariff system that governs us in the U.S. is antiquated, and why we supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership and other things was as a way to update it and to address things like digital commerce and intellectual property and things that needed to be updated. But it ultimately comes down to consumers pay the price. And it's a matter of where, so if we are, for us, we manufacture footwear in predominantly 3 countries, China, Indonesia, and Vietnam. We don't manufacture the same stuff. So basketball, sportswear, Jordan comes out of China. We do more running, more other stuff out of Vietnam. And so it's going to hit certain things harder than others, and you have to figure out how do we deal with that? Do we deal with it on price? And I think, for us, tariffs ebb and flow, and we're advocating free trade agreements between Europe and Vietnam, Indonesia and Europe, and trying to get trade preferences and open up trade lanes. And even when China adds structure to trade relationships, it allows us to grow our business around the world. And when we grow our business around the world, we add people here in Oregon. Us doing more in China helps us add people here in Oregon to innovate and create and market. But I think the tariff structure has been a headwind. We're always trying to peel it back. It ultimately hits consumers. And I think that when tariffs are used to make a political point, I think the more that our economic ties are connected, the more secure we are as a planet. I would rather have U.S. companies with investments in China and Chinese companies with investments in the U.S. and where we can't punish them without hurting our own interests. I think that makes the world a more secure place, and I hope we can peel back these tariffs and give consumers more opportunity, more choice. But Nike's duty tab is now greater than our total revenue was, I think, for the first 18 years of our existence. It's an enormous tab. And it's straight bottom line, and I know you guys understand that, right? It's straight, it's all margin, it's all, and it just, but we've had the headwind, and I hope the world will look at tariffs as something that should be peeled back to open up opportunity and consumer choice, and not something that should be used punitively.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's very special to have Sean in our community, and in a way coming back home for an opportunity. True to point, Jerry has incredible influence sometimes, and we had the opportunity, Sean, myself, Bill, Dick, a number of others, to celebrate Jerry's 96th birthday up at the Oregon Historical Society a few weeks ago. And Sean walked in with 2 custom-made shoes for Jerry, as usual. But Kathy and I also like to participate in the Nike front, so we are in our Nikes today. Albeit not custom ones. I'm in Salem, Sean. 11 and a half. When we had the opportunity to celebrate Jerry and have so many of those special people around the table, it's important to understand how Jerry continues to give back and how his bandwidth is in this community. And I know Barry Nelson is here, and the Rotary Project for Jerry Frank's amphitheater is very dear to him. And they're in their final stretch of fundraising. And if you haven't had the opportunity to meet Barry, he's just an incredible leader in this community. I think somebody you're going to see a lot of coming up. But Barry and the Rotary Group under Bruce's leadership and a number of others have really taken a hold of the reins and are going to make this pavilion, amphitheater reality. And so if you get a chance, touch base with Barry today before departing. Having Nike here as one of our largest employers, certainly in the state, is very special. And it takes that whole blending that Sean talked about to create a great city. You look at on the small business end, I mean, Ross Fresh Markets and all these groups who come to the chamber and say, I'm going to help you out. I'm pretty proud to say that September was our first month since quite a long time that the Salem Chamber actually added a member a day. And I want to thank you for that, because this organization is stronger with businesses at the table. And our value proposition and the work that we are doing now, and probably more importantly, the work that we have ahead of us, more people make that work lighter, and this organization needs to continue to grow. If you have a business that you think would enjoy the opportunity just to hear a little bit about the work that we're doing, I'd ask you to let myself know. Zachary Zalicki is in the crowd as well in our membership department. But that type of energy allows us to grow and continue to have a greater impact in this city. Thank you so much to Mark Hoyt and his partners. I know we have a number in the firm here today with Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt for allowing this program to happen with their gracious sponsorship dollars. I would invite you to join us on November 18th. That will be our next forum luncheon. Now, this is a little unique again. For those of you who are aware of this gentleman, our speaker was to be Mr. Pat Wrighton. And Patrick is essentially Warren Buffett's right-hand man. And so when you're in a humble chamber, that the Salem Chamber is, and you receive a phone call, and our wonderful front desk and programs assistant, Heidi, comes back and says, hey, Pat Wrighton's on the phone for you. And I'm like, Pat Wrighton? Pat Wrighton? You take that phone call, and back to Sean's point about Jerry telling you you're going to present, Pat was very apologetic, but he has had an unforeseen trip arise, and he will not be able to join us on November 18th. And believe me, Patrick was wanting to speak to me in person and say, gosh, I am so sorry. Please tell Jerry. I am so sorry. I'm scared to call him myself. But Patrick has confirmed that he will join us in 2020. And so we will have Pat Wrighton here at the Salem Chamber. But one of the things that we do in a leadership spot is always have a couple programs in our back quiver for when we need them. And next month is no exception. We will feature the Salem for Refugees project. And for those of you who are not aware of what that is, it is powerful. And that is bringing people who have no other place to go into this community and having them set up and be successful. So that program will be sponsored by Huggins Insurance and Bliss Sequoia, and it is can't miss. It was going to be on our list for 2020, and so now we're bumping it up a bit, and we're going to bring that forward. Again, Pat Wrighton, big apologies. Without the craftsmanship of Allied Video, none of this would occur, so Brian and his staff were so appreciative of our digital presence and making this seem quite professional. We have a new partner in the room, and I'd like you to turn back and give a wave to the cameras. CCTV is now filming all of our forum lunches, and we'll rebroadcast those throughout the month. So we are very happy to have that community organization on board as we continue to expand our bandwidth. If you get a chance to thank Jose Gonzalez for his work, our Spirit of Salem Award winner, we'd ask that you do that. Our chamber staff, without you guys, none of this happens. And there's no leader of any organization that is strong without a great staff. So I want to thank you guys for the work that you do. And our ambassadors, who are our welcome mat to Salem. And they love this business community, and they love making sure the Salem Chamber functions are special and personalized and engaging. Thank you to the ambassadors for your great work. Bruce, we are going to miss you, but we're very, very happy for what you're doing, and know that you always can call this organization home. Kathy and our board have some great strategy sessions ahead as we look into the presidency for the remainder of Bruce's year, and we know we're going to be in great shape in the years ahead. With that, I want to thank all of you for investing in this organization, and be great out there. Thanks so much, ladies and gentlemen.